destroyed, lives lost. But now we have a choice, whether to implode and disintegrate emotionally and spiritually as a people and a nation, or whether we choose to become stronger through all of this struggle to rebuild on a solid foundation.
And Friday was prayer day for the Muslim community in Brooklyn, New York, a couple of miles from the World Trade Center. U.S. officials say evidence suggests that those behind the attacks were fanatical Muslims bent on a holy war against America. But still, some Arab Americans are finding themselves the target of violence. Here's CNN's Richard Blystone with that.
A community rich in immigrants, sharing the time-honored aim of making it in America. Still on good terms with their old cultures. Still strong in their faith, Islam. Atlantic Avenue, they proudly say, is the oldest Arab community in New York, and as stunned as anyone by Tuesday's carnage.
It's shocking, it's horrible. You feel very bad, you know.
What's different here is fear of taking the blame.
All Arab American and Muslims in this country that resides and live and make their living in this country are as good as American as anyone else that came from all over the world, and they love the American flag just like anyone else, and they have nothing to do against this country, and this is one of the reasons we are living in this country.
Nonetheless, Atlantic Avenue today is keeping a low profile, lest the rash of slurs and slights and insults get more serious. Ahmed Morsi is passing out a letter in Arabic from the New York District Attorney, telling Arabs and Muslims where to call if harassed or attacked, like his own mother on Tuesday.
She was spit at, go back to your country, die, this and all these different slurs and different, my mother.
Islam is a religion of tolerance, says the Imam, Abdul Rahman Tafa, a religion that forbids ignorant wars between nations. Muslims from 22 nations come to pray here. We all feel the pain of what happened, says the Imam, and he asks, please give blood, money, whatever you can to help victims of the disaster. But if the attackers were Muslims pursuing what they saw as a holy war, did Islam attack America? Jihad is for defense and defense only, he says, and anyone who preaches otherwise doesn't know Islam. The Quran says if a man murders another human being, it is as though he killed all humanity. This Friday service ends with special prayers for all those who were killed, including at least 50 Muslims. Richard Blystone, CNN, Brooklyn, New York.
Well, many countries around the world join the American people in a day of mourning and remembrance, people from all backgrounds.
And for more on that, let's cross over now and wish Jane Dutton a good morning there in London. Jane.
Hey, Jane.
Good morning. Now, there's been an overwhelming show of emotional and political support. A number of heads of state have already pledged their country's support for the U.S. government and are urging others to do the same. At a memorial in Ottawa, Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien made it clear his country is behind President George W. Bush no matter what. Describing Canada's relationship with the U.S., he said, "Our friendship has no limit." And in Berlin,
Amen. Sing grace, how sweet that sound that sings.
hundreds of thousands of Germans lit candles as they gathered to mourn America's loss. After the ceremony, they held a march for peace on the streets of Berlin. South Africans are among those who are mourning. At least 9 South Africans are missing after the attacks. In Pretoria, residents waited in line Friday to sign books of condolence at the U.S. Embassy. Charlene Hunter-Gould has this report.
A somber service, no singing, highly unusual in a country where singing is a staple of any gathering. But on this day, only words, sad words, from Christians.
Our humanity lies in dust and ashes around us.
Words of reconciliation from Muslims.
He who forgives and makes reconciliation, his reward is due from the Almighty.
Words of condolence from Christians, Muslims, and Jews. After, words from the worried.
I am a Christian woman married to a Muslim husband. And the need for the world to unite is for me the most important thing right now. This could lead to war, intolerance of each other. It could destroy families. It could destroy nations.
I do feel that might spread to the whole world, the evil that is taking place.
Words of hope.
And I wish that the rest of the world would follow the South African position, where through dialogue we've achieved peace and we live peacefully.
Not far away at the U.S. consulate, South African visitors bearing gifts and more words.
This will just sweeten the American people that are here, that are alive, their day, and just hopefully fill the void of what's happened.
I'm from Morocco, you know, and it doesn't matter if I'm Morocco, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian, or I'm Jewish. Doesn't make difference. But it's really hurt me a lot.
At the airport, where flights to America remain on hold, words of frustration.
Like, I'm a nurse, so you just feel like, oh, you could help out in some way, but, your hands are tied, stuck here.
We stand ready to extend such humanitarian assistance as we may be requested to extend. This is the least we can do.
South Africa's political history as diplomatic friend to all, and most recently host to the World Racism Conference, where it insisted the Palestinian issue deserved a hearing, raised concerns as the U.S. contemplates its response.
Hopefully South Africa will end up on the right side of the fence, even if it means that we will have to say goodbye to many of the rogue states we are currently embracing.
And we are part of the world that is saying the perpetrators of this must be found, and they must face the weight of the law.
We must implore on the United States and NATO to avoid the same level of indiscriminate action when meeting punishment to the guilty parties.
No one is sure exactly how long the American flag will fly at half-staff here. But as long as it does, South Africans say they want Americans to know they're with them in their hour of sorrow and grief. Charlene Hunter-Gault, CNN, Johannesburg.
People in China are showing their support for the victims. Students at a private elementary and middle school in Beijing held a memorial on Friday. A representative from each grade level offered a bouquet of flowers to a wreath for victims of the attack. Students and teachers observed a moment of silence. People have also been placing flowers outside the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. In Iran, where the United States has long been considered the enemy, an unprecedented show of sympathy. 60,000 spectators and soccer players observed a minute of silence at the Tehran Soccer Stadium before a World Cup qualifying match. Iranian leaders have strongly condemned Tuesday's attacks, a gesture a U.S. State Department official has said Washington would like to build on in the future. That's a look at how the world is reacting. I'm Jane Dutton in London. Now back to Jim at CNN Center.
All right, Jane, thanks for that. One of the 64 people who was aboard the American Airlines Flight 77, that's the one that crashed into the Pentagon Tuesday, was a woman named Barbara Olson, a television commentator and the wife of U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson. She managed to make 2 cell phone calls to her husband in the minutes before the plane crashed. Mr. Olson says now he's coping by taking it one day at a time.
I left the home a little before 6, as I said, and Barbara left not long thereafter to catch the plane, and it was my birthday. And when I finally went to bed, it was after 1 o'clock. Now it was September 12th. There was a note that Barbara had written to me on the pillow, saying, "I love you. When you read this, I will be thinking of you, and I will be back Friday."
Olson says his wife was aware of the World Trade Center attacks. He says her last words to him were, "What do you want me to tell the pilot to do?" Now, during Larry King's program, he also spoke to a remarkable survivor of all of the death and destruction at the World Trade Center towers. Michael Hingson, who is blind, worked on the 78th floor of the first tower to be struck by a hijacked plane. His guide dog helped him begin his escape.
You're walking down 78 floors. You got a friend with you and you got your dog. Are you scared?
Oh, no question. Was very concerned. I didn't hear the second plane hit, but we knew that at that time something had happened. We figured that a plane had hit the building because I could smell, and we all could smell jet fuel fumes. So we knew there was something going on.
Hingson and his dog made it to the lobby, left the tower, and took shelter in a subway just as the building started to collapse.
Well, as people struggle to cope with the aftermath of these attacks, the entertainment community has begun to show its support as well. Lauren Hunter has more on that.
The scenes are grim, the mood somber. People throughout the country struggle to deal with their grief and search for ways to show their support days after the devastating terrorist attacks in New York and Washington.
Our entire country is now facing a national emergency.
In the entertainment community, artists are standing in solidarity and sympathy with Tuesday's victims and their families with both their time and their money.
Rosie O'Donnell has been a tremendous supporter of the Red Cross, particularly in the areas of disaster relief and our mental health services. And yesterday she made a $1 million donation to support the American Red Cross in our efforts.
Jennifer Lopez also gave, writing a $25,000 check to the relief effort, as did Earth, Wind & Fire. Rob Lowe gave in a different way, donating blood, while Kathleen Turner volunteered at St. Vincent's Hospital in New York, and Edward James Olmos spoke out for tolerance at the Islamic Center in Los Angeles.
We are one race, and that's the human race, period.
Madonna resumed her tour in Los Angeles, dedicating proceeds from her remaining shows to a fund honoring those affected by the tragedy. Clear Channel is the worldwide concert promoter for Madonna and scores of other artists, and has created its own relief fund.
Lynyrd Skynyrd and the Backstreet Boys have stepped up immediately, and they've already made significant contributions to the fund. And I'm sure that either with us or in their own way, you know, the live entertainment industry and the members of the industry will come to the table.
The Screen Actors Guild did, donating $50,000 to a special New York State fund for families of victims.
We're only too glad to do it, and I think it's our duty to help, and duty of all Americans to help.
Though life in the United States will never be the same, entertainers from Hollywood to Broadway are uniting with their countrymen to weave a national tapestry of healing.
And may God bless America.
Lauren Hunter, CNN, Los Angeles.
We want to pay tribute now to some of the first victims of that terrible Tuesday, the passengers and the crew of that first jetliner that crashed into the World Trade Center. Frank Sesno looks at some of them as America remembers.
Lost on American Flight 11 from Boston, headed to Los Angeles. Carol Bouchard, an emergency room secretary. She was on her way to Las Vegas with her friend Renee Newell. Renee worked for the airline and gave Carol a buddy pass so the two could vacation together. Tara Creamer was on a business trip to Los Angeles and worried about leaving her two children, Colin, 4, and Nora, 1. Her husband, John, called her a kind and loving wife and mother. 71-year-old Thelma Cusinella was on her way to visit older sister Grace and her brother-in-law in Los Angeles. Thelma did not get to see her sister often and was overjoyed when her daughter found her a discount cross-country fare. Nellie Casey was on her first business trip. Since coming back from a 6-month maternity leave, she would have celebrated her 5th wedding anniversary with husband Michael on September 21st. Linda George, 27, was on a buying trip for an apparel company. She and her fiancé were planning their wedding. It was scheduled for next month. American Flight 11 crashed into the World Trade Center at 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time on September 11th, 2001.
Colleen, that certainly puts a face on it and brings it into focus. Just, you know, the terrible loss that thousands